Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about recent important news. With us today, I'm happy to have back Peter Pascali, President and CEO at PyroGenesis Canada, trades on the TSX Venture Exchange on the stock symbol PYR, in the US on the QB under PYRNF. Now, for those of you who are new to the story, PyroGenesis is the world leader in advanced plasma processes. More than just lip service, because a lot of small cap companies like to use that kind of jargon. Their technology is already on use on US aircraft carriers to vaporize waste, as well as they've been successfully tested by DARPA to destroy chemical weapons. That's the agency of the US Department of Defense responsible for the development of emerging technologies for use by the military. Moreover, its titanium powders for advanced 3D printing has already received orders and interest from the world's biggest companies, including NDAs with some of the world's largest airplane engine manufacturers, and that's a pretty small group, so you can probably guess who that is. As you can imagine, it's a monumental feat just to commercialize one advanced technology, let alone multiple applications. So I'm not exaggerating when I say Peter Pascali is Canada's Elon Musk. Peter, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, George. Thanks for having us, and thanks for that nice introduction.
No interview with you can ever be just one thing because of the nature of what you're doing and such a broad horizon. But let's start off first with Dross Right. You put out an update just the other day, and here's what I found most interesting. You think all of the entire company, not just the Dross Right line, but you think all of PyroGenesis will be profitable this year just on Dross Right. Why are you feeling that way?
George, Dross Right's really become a significant contributor to the company. Late last year, we got a second order from an existing client. So that wasn't just the second order, but it was a reorder. And originally, we had a lot of interest in Dross Right, but no one really wanted to be first. There's a lot of people that wanted to be the first to be second. And once that first system was completed and was demonstrated to be what we said it was, we got a reorder, and there's just been a flood of activity since then. We've press released. We have interest out of the Middle East, so we should be signing a couple of contracts, for a couple of systems over the next few weeks, a couple of months from the Middle East. Our existing client wants another 2, and we're in closing discussions with him for another 2 systems. So you have 4. We have the 5th one, the one that he ordered. Our demonstration system is off to India right now. It's already in India, and we're demonstrating the process in India, where people are actually paying. So when we say we demonstrate, George, we're doing demonstrations. We just don't go do this for free. People actually have to pay us for the demonstration, which separates the men from the boys in the sense that real interested, real motivated people are paying. And in India, as of last week, I think we've spoken to every primary player. So we expect at least 1 to 4 systems to come out of India. And if you add all those up, we're talking about 8, 9, 10 systems this year. What's interesting is from the beginning to the end of an order, it's about 4 months, 5 months. So anything we're talking about now, we should be able to complete by the end of the year. If you follow these numbers, we're talking about, as I said, 8 to 10, 12 systems this year. We break even at around 9 million. And from Dross Right, we're talking now between $8 and $15 million. In revenues coming from Dross Right. When you add in our backlog, we've got about $7 million of backlog, $4 million of which is going through our balance sheet this year. So when you add this all together, I think I'm pretty comfortable going out on the limb and saying we're going to be not just cash flow positive from an EBITDA basis, but profitable. This is just from Dross Right.
What I found interesting was this. Talk about pricing power. You originally you sold your first system to a client for about $600,000. Now you're selling them for over $1 million. How do you get that kind of pricing power in a hyper-competitive industry? Because these are big manufacturers who are looking to keep costs down. How do you increase your price by almost double and still increase your sales?
Well, I really like the fact that it was done with the same client, and I think, well, it wasn't exactly the same system, but the variation was very small. The fact is that he actually was able to demonstrate to himself. I mean, that the fact that there's such a benefit, the payback was even better. I think $1.5 million payback would have been under a year. So arguably the system can still have price increases given its benefits. But this just demonstrates the fact that Dross Right does exactly what we say it's going to do, and probably even better. So yeah, George, it's an important takeaway that price increase was with an existing client, and is tending towards the price that we think it should be at.
Now, Dross Right isn't a sexy name. It's not blockchain. It's not crypto. It's not marijuana. What is it, quickly, if you can tell people who are new to the story, what does Dross Right do that it's making these manufacturers actually buy your product almost double the price they're originally buying it at?
Well, essentially, it's a system that processes a waste stream called dross and recuperates the valuable metal that's in that waste stream. And typically, in industries we're identifying, it has to go off-site to a third party to recuperate that metal, because the processes that recuperate the metal typically use a salt-based process. And you don't want salt on the site of an aluminum smelter because it could contaminate the batch. So the smelters are essentially forced to send it off-site. And that there's a lot of costs involved with that, not only just transportation, the heating up, the cooling down, the transporting, the heating up and back and forth. So there's a lot of costs associated with it.
A lot of logistics, I would imagine.
So we get rid of all that because we don't use a salt-based process. So we can be smacked right up against the smelter, save all that costs. And so there's those cost savings in processing. But what's even much more interesting is the increase in aluminum that we're getting from the dross. It looks like 10, 15, 20% sometimes more metal value to the client.
So you've got these manufacturers who are experiencing a pretty big ROI, clearly from what you're telling us. You've got a demonstration unit going on in India, but it's stuck in India right now. You need more demonstration units because that's going to slow down your sales. What are you doing to address the fact that you need another demonstration unit just for North America, I'm presuming? Exactly.
That was in our press release. I think we identified that was one of the hurdles we're coming up against is our demonstration system. We can't get away from having to do a demonstration. Once we have more plants that we have up and running that we can point to, we can have people go to the plants and take a peek. I mean, if we have permission from the clients. But until then, we needed another demonstration unit. And with the last financing we did, we're taking that portion of that money, and we've actually got a second demonstration on order right now. We're getting the parts together. I think, conservatively speaking, by May, June, we'll have the second one up, and we're starting to schedule demonstrations with that system in North America.
Safe to say that this takes care of some of the online criticism you received for selling, I don't know, 1 or 2 systems over the last 2 years. There's different numbers out there, but how do you respond to that?
Well, nothing's impossible, I guess, for the man who doesn't really have to do it himself. But in our case, what you have to do is you have to go out and sell, correct? When someone says we haven't sold a system or 2 systems for the past 2 years, I say, well, why do you stop at 2 years? We have only sold 2 systems in the past 50, 100, 1,000 years. Why stop at 2? The fact of the matter, George, is you have to demonstrate the thing first. You can't go out and sell something you haven't proven out in a commercial setting. So we did that, and as soon as we did that, the client, we ordered one. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And on top of that, we've got orders or interest or people paying for demonstrations, which gives us a view on another 8 to 10, 12 this year. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing in my book. I understand the criticism. They don't understand maybe the technology that well or what's needed to get a sale concluded. First of all, you have to have a system that operates in a commercial setting. First of all, you have to find somebody that wants to be the first and not the first to be second. So once you find that player, You got to, sell it to them, demonstrate it, and there's going to be some glitches. So you got to get those glitches out. And once you get those glitches out and he accepts it, you can go commercial. And he was our first reorder. Perfect. Now we've got a hot leads and interest and people paying. I think we've done very, very well. I don't think the criticism there is really valid or
But I want to bring it up because look, we always have to play a little devil's advocate here as well. There are some criticism, and I want to give you a chance to address it.
Sure. But sure, I appreciate it, and to those that like to give us advice, and I've got a lot of people that write letters to me, emails to me, and giving me advice. Just keep on going because I actually read them and I take it. I take them all under consideration, and they have many times opened our views to other situations.
Let's switch gears now over to the metal powder side. My apologies. You announced ISO. I'm going to read it here to make sure I get it right. You received ISO 9001 2008 certification.
Right.
You already had that ISO certification. So what I want to do is move into the business side, but really quickly, how is this a little different from the existing certification you already have?
Well, we have a certification, as you know. We've had we've been ISO certified for some time, but never for powders, not for metal powders. So this is an addition to our existing ISO certification, which brings powders under that umbrella. It's just an indication of how we're getting, one step at a time, getting closer and closer to where we want to be. But it also gives our clients, potential clients, the comfort that we are ISO certified in the areas they deal in. It gives them a certain level of comfort and willingness to move forward. Some potential clients, it's a make or break. You got to have it. We're not stopping there though, George. We're also adding in other ISO qualifications specifically for the aerospace and the medical industries. And that'll take a little bit more time, but we've got plans and we're underway. That's underway as I mentioned in our press release.
So you talk about clients. That's where I want to move to. You signed some pretty spectacular NDAs. It's no small thing for a company of your size to be signing NDAs with airplane engine manufacturers. And you came pretty strong and fast with those. So where are you at now? Because it's been a little bit quiet, and I understand why it hasn't been, because just because you have the NDA, you got to start testing. But how are those looking in terms of moving forward for business?
Yeah, I mentioned there's a flurry of activity, and there still is. But you have to determine what's newsworthy and what's not anymore. I mean, in the beginning, having a sample order when we never expected it was huge to us. And then there was repeat sample orders, and there was NDAs with some very big names. And we continue to write these NDAs. But at some point, we don't find it now to be newsworthy. It's almost business as usual. Where they are, you can't really talk about where we are with our NDAs. I'm personally very excited with the players we're talking about and what we're talking about. George, you have to put this in perspective. A year ago, nobody really knew who we were. February, March of 2017, we were the inventors of plasma atomization. We had people ask me, really? You're the inventors of plasma atomization? And we didn't have a system up and running. Since that time, George, sample orders, NDAs with real credible players in the marketplace that have a real interest in us understanding our powder quality and with a view of doing something with it, using it, ordering it on a long-term basis. Strategic relationships, everything from exclusivities to research and development with very key players. So we've gone in 1 year from 0 to 100 in 12 months, and we're now ordering two more systems, which we hope to have up and running by the end of June. One should be very close, and the second one will be by the end of June. So all very exciting, way beyond what we expected. So that is a bit of a challenge because we had things like analytical equipment, sieving equipment, an industrialization plan. These type of things we strategized to start, sometime later on in 2018, but now we're being forced to consider them much earlier on. That's all good news. That's all good news, George. It's good. It's good challenges to have. So to speak to the NDAs, I expect that the level of discussions and the quality of discussions and the players we're having discussions with, something will come out of this at some level over the next. I don't want to put time frames in press releases or in interviews, but relatively short order. And it will all be good for PyroGenesis and PyroGenesis investors at the end of the day.
That's clear. Just to clarify, so you're past the point of just announcing NDAs anymore because you want to make sure the market knew about the first set, but it's not really material. So it's possible that you're signing NDAs and will be signing future NDAs without necessarily having to tell the market.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's exactly it. And we have, George. I mean, I think I said in our press release, we're just not press releasing because, if I say we're the 5th or the 6th or the 7th, it gets lost. At the end of the day, what's newsworthy is what comes out of these out of these conversations. So I guess what I tried to varying degree of success in my last press release, try to underscore is yes, we've signed a number of NDAs, but now it's turning to some significant conversations. They're moving along. We haven't had anybody cancel an NDA, say, okay, we want to stop talking with you. So that's I'll just leave it at that, George, before I overplay my
all right.
my position.
That's I got more than I thought we might get. Last question for you.
Sure.
Last question. Looking at what's going on down south in the U.S. with their defense, and if you read what's going on, it looks like another aircraft carrier is going to be coming on board. What's happening there? Because you're already on aircraft carriers. Can we ask you if you're going to be on the next one?
Well, we're the design of the aircraft carrier, George, as you know. So one would expect that when they order one, they because we're in the design, they come and ask us for a system. We fully expect that when an aircraft carrier is ordered, and if in the popular press, I'm speaking to the popular press, nothing that and no information I have with U.S. military, but if you read the popular press, one would expect that an order for an aircraft carrier will be coming sometime in the between June and September. If that happens, George, you can see how things are just going to go crazy. Because when I talked to you about profitability, I didn't put that in. I just looked at Dross Right and backlog. I didn't look at any powders. When I talked about in our press release that we're going to be profitable this year, there's absolutely no consideration for powders. There's absolutely no consideration for another order from the aircraft carrier. So yes, we expect to be in that aircraft carrier if it's ordered, and if they order two, which I've heard from some places they may be ordering two at the same time.
Wow.
Then we be in that. We should be in both of them.
Peter, I'm going to say it again. I mean, I've worked in the small cap industry for 20 years as the founder and principal of Gorecom. I've seen thousands of companies, read thousands of business plans, and represented hundreds of companies. But I got to tell you, and for everyone at home that's watching, that may be taking, maybe taking PyroGenesis for granted. Because sometimes the better you do, people just take it for granted. Let's face it, right? That's what happens.
That's true. That's true.
To have the defense side with the U.S. aircraft carriers, and to have what on the research side with DARPA, to have what you're doing on the 3D on the metal powders right now and what's going on there. We haven't the Dross Right on its own and we haven't even talked about HPQ with solar. We'll leave that for another time because we don't want to go too long in the tooth here. But it's unbelievable. Hats off to you and your team, what you're doing. And what's really exciting is watching you emerge, because each one of these are hitting on a higher and higher gear. Each one is a company maker on its own, let alone two, because 1 + 1 = 3. And if you get another one, 1 + 1 + 1 is going to equal 5 or 6. So you're one of the most exciting companies I've ever seen in the space, and you're a humble guy. You're happy to do these interviews. I want to just thank you for being here and leave a last word to you before we sign off.
Well, George, I want to thank you for providing this opportunity and platform to speak to people and investors out there. And I want to thank our investors and supporters and those who keep on emailing me with all sorts of suggestions, and my team. I mean, we have a great team here, George. I used to say, and I'll say it again, we don't think outside the box here at the PyroGenesis. We actually redefine the box, and that's what we do time and time again. We have a great team here. They're dedicated. They meet the challenges head on. We've been around for a long time. We're going to be around for a lot longer than we have been. And George, I thank you very much for your time again, and for my investors and supporters for having the faith in us when things look dim.
No, they're the ones who deserve the greatest reward, and you're right. The most thanks goes out to them. Peter, thanks for joining us today. Looking forward to seeing you next time. For everybody at home, you've been watching Peter Pascal. He's President and CEO of PyroGenesis Canada. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange on the stock symbol PYR. For our friends in the US, on the QB, OTC QB, that is PYRNF. You can find them on the web at pyrogenesis.com to do your due diligence, or get to Agoracom, look at their profile, watch the other interviews we've done with Pete over the past several months if you need to catch up because you're new to the story. But keep doing your due diligence. Keep watching PyroGenesis. For me, this is one of the top 5 companies in the small cap space for the next 5 years by a long shot. So I'm loving it. I'm watching it, and I recommend the same for everyone at home. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks again, Peter. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.